Montana, 1876. Michael Colt stood motionless on the ridge, his Winchester Model 1873 braced against his shoulder. Through the scope, he watched dust billowing behind the Wells Fargo wagon as it rolled through the valley below. The morning sun caught on something metallic, a badge pinned to the chest of a rider trailing the convoy. Not just any badge, a sheriff's star that had no business being there. Michael's finger tightened on the trigger. Patience, he whispered to himself. 4 riders burst from the tree line, guns blazing. The guards returned fire, but 2 fell immediately. The driver whipped the horses frantically, but a bullet found him too. The wagon careened to a stop. Michael's heartbeat slowed as he focused on the leader, a man with a black duster and distinctive red bandana. The man who'd haunted his dreams for 3 years. "It's been a long time, Cole," Michael murmured, exhaling slowly. The crosshairs settled on the back of Cole Blackwood's head. Michael squeezed the trigger. The rifle's report echoed across the valley. Through the scope, Michael watched Cole's body jerk, then crumple from his saddle. The remaining bandits scattered like startled crows. Michael worked the lever, ejecting the smoking cartridge. "1 down," he said to the empty air. 5 to go. Redemption was a town balanced on the knife edge of civilization and wilderness. A single dusty street lined with false-fronted buildings, it served as the last outpost before the untamed Montana wilderness. The newly constructed railroad spur had brought prosperity, and predators attracted to that prosperity. Michael rode in as dusk painted the buildings orange and purple. His bay gelding's hooves kicked up dust that hung in the air like memories that refused to settle. A Winchester rifle poked from his saddle scabbard, and twin Colt peacemakers rode his hips. The badge that once adorned his chest was long gone, buried with what remained of his former life. The Broken Spoke Saloon beckoned with piano music and yellow lamplight. Michael dismounted, wincing as his boot hit the ground. The old wound from Antietam still spoke to him when the weather changed. Inside, the saloon hummed with the energy of a Friday evening. Cowboys fresh from the range, railroad workers with coal-stained hands, and the occasional suit-wearing businessman crowded around tables. Michael scanned the room with practiced eyes, noting exits, threats, opportunities. Behind the bar stood a woman with copper hair and shoulders squared against the world. Kate Miller had the bearing of someone who'd seen the worst life could offer and refused to bend. Her eyes, older than her 30 years, met Michael's as he approached. "Whiskey," he said, laying a coin on the scarred wood. She poured without comment, but her gaze lingered on the scars that mapped his knuckles, the subtle bulge of the hideaway derringer in his sleeve. "Passing through?" she asked, voice neutral but eyes sharp. "Looking for someone." Michael tossed back the whiskey. "Man named Cole Blackwood." The piano's tempo faltered for just a beat. 3 men at a corner table glanced up, then quickly away. "That's not a name folks say out loud here," Kate replied, leaning forward. "Sheriff Parker has an arrangement with the Blackwoods." Michael's mouth tightened. "I'm not interested in arrangements." "Then you won't last long in redemption." Kate refilled his glass without being asked. "Whatever business you have with Cole, let it go. Men who cross the Blackwoods end up decorating the cottonwoods down by the creek." A commotion at the back door interrupted them. A tall man with weathered copper skin and braided black hair, shot with gray, stepped in. His clothing was a mix of white man's attire and Cheyenne elements. Beaded vest over cotton shirt, cavalry boots beneath buckskin leggings. Several patrons shifted uncomfortably. Others openly glared. "Daniel," Kate nodded respectfully. "Your usual." The man they called Cheyenne, Daniel Wilson, nodded, eyes scanning the room before settling on Michael. Recognition flashed between them, not of faces, but of kind. Men who'd seen war. Men who lived with ghosts. Michael was about to approach Wilson when the saloon doors crashed open. A man with features that echoed Cole Blackwood's, but younger, cruder, stumbled in with two companions. Bobby Blackwood had arrived, already half drunk and looking for trouble. "Miller," Bobby shouted, "where's my damn money?" Kate's face hardened. "Your brother gave James until the end of the month." "Plans change," Bobby sneered, approaching the bar. "Cole wants what's owed now." His eyes slid to Michael. "Who's this? New companion to warm your bed." Michael didn't move, didn't flinch. He sipped his whiskey as if Bobby were nothing more than a mild annoyance, which compared to what Michael had faced, he was. "My business isn't with you," Michael said. Bobby's hand dropped to his revolver. "I'm making it your business." Michael moved with the practiced speed of a man who'd drawn his weapon countless times when it mattered. His Colt appeared as if conjured, aimed at Bobby's chest. "Touch that gun, and it'll be the last mistake you make." The saloon went silent, Bobby's face flushed with rage and humiliation. Behind him, his companions reached for their weapons. "I wouldn't," came a gravelly voice. Cheyenne Wilson had materialized behind Bobby's men, a sawed-off shotgun persuasively positioned. "Too many friends would die." Bobby's eyes darted between Michael and Wilson, calculating odds he didn't like. "This isn't over," he spat, backing toward the door. "Nobody draws on a Blackwood without consequences." After they'd gone, Wilson approached Michael. "You've stirred up a hornet's nest, friend." "Wasn't much of a nest," Michael replied. "Those were just the drones. The Queen has a much deadlier sting." Wilson extended his hand. "Daniel Wilson. Some call me Cheyenne." "Michael Colt." The handshake was firm. "We've met before." "Vicksburg, 63. Wilson's eyes widened slightly. "The Falcon Scout. Thought you were dead." "Part of me is." Michael glanced at Kate, who was watching them intently. "We need to talk." Before Wilson could respond, a small figure darted from behind the bar, a girl of about 6 with Kate's copper hair and solemn eyes. She tugged at Michael's coat, then opened her palm to reveal a tarnished star, a sheriff's badge, the same one Michael had seen on the rider with Cole. "Jenny!" Kate rushed forward. "Give that back! Where did you get it?" The girl's hands moved in fluid gestures, sign language. "She says she found it on a dead man by the creek," Kate translated, face pale. "The one you shot." Wilson and Michael exchanged sharp glances. "Your daughter is observant," Michael said quietly, "and right. That badge belonged to a dead man, one who rode with Cole Blackwood this morning." He took the badge, running his thumb over the dented metal. "Stolen from its rightful owner, I'd wager." The saloon doors swung open again. Sheriff Ethan Parker stood framed in the doorway, a hand resting on his revolver. His eyes, set in a face mapped with deep lines and old disappointments, fixed on Michael. "Well now," Parker drawled, "seems we have a new visitor, one who's mighty interested in the Blackwoods." His gaze dropped to the badge in Michael's hand, and something flickered across his features, recognition, then alarm. Michael pocketed the badge slowly. "Just passing through, Sheriff. With a Winchester and twin Colts? That's a lot of iron for a man, just passing through." Parker stepped closer. "I think you and I should have a conversation about your business in my town." "Your town?" Michael's voice was dangerously soft. "I thought redemption belonged to the people who built it, not to badge-wearing men who let killers run free." Parker's hand tightened on his gun. The tension in the room crackled like heat lightning before a storm. "Michael," Wilson said quietly, "now isn't the time." But Michael had seen something in Parker's eyes when he spotted the badge. Fear. And where there was fear, there were secrets worth uncovering. "Your deputy," Michael said, watching Parker's face. "The one who rides with Cole Blackwood? Does he report back to you before or after the robberies?" Parker's face drained of color. His gun cleared leather just as Michael's hand dropped to his own. Wilson moved between them, hands raised. "Enough! Blood spilled here helps no one." From the doorway came the sound of rifles being cocked. 3 men in buckskin stood there, Wilson's hunting companions, their weapons trained on Parker. "Think carefully, Sheriff," Wilson advised. "Your deputy's badge is in this man's pocket. How it got there raises questions you might not want answered publicly." Parker's jaw worked, anger battling with self-preservation. Finally, he eased his hand away from his weapon. "You've got 24 hours to leave Redemption," he said to Michael. "After that, I can't guarantee your safety." "Funny," Michael replied. "I was about to say the same to you." After Parker stalked out, Wilson turned to Michael. "You've just declared war on two fronts, the law and the outlaws. In my experience, there's not much difference between them these days." Michael looked down at Jenny, who was watching him with intelligent eyes. "Smart girl you have there, Mrs. Miller." "Ms." Kate corrected. "James died last year, shot during a bank robbery." Her eyes hardened. "By Cole Blackwood's gang." Michael nodded slowly, understanding blooming. "Then perhaps we have common cause." Jenny tugged at her mother's skirt, hands moving rapidly in sign language. "What's she saying?" Michael asked. Kate's expression was unreadable. "She says the dead man had a map. She knows where Cole is hiding." By dawn, Michael and Wilson had formulated a plan. With Kate's reluctant permission, Jenny had led them to the creek where she'd found the badge. The girl moved with surprising stealth for one so young, her silence both a tragedy and an advantage in their current circumstances. "The girl doesn't speak at all?" Michael asked as they followed a deer trail through dense pines. "Not since she watched her father die," Wilson replied. "Some wounds don't bleed, but cut deeper than any knife." The body was gone, likely retrieved by Parker or Blackwood's men. But Jenny led them to a hollow tree where she'd hidden something she'd taken from the corpse. A hand-drawn map showing the location of Blackwood's hideout, and more importantly, a schedule of upcoming bank shipments. "Smart girl," Michael said, genuinely impressed. "You'd make a fine deputy." Jenny's solemn face brightened momentarily. Back at the Broken Spoke, Kate spread the map on a table in her private quarters behind the saloon. "This shipment," she said, pointing to a notation for the coming Thursday. "Payroll for the entire railroad construction crew, plus capital for the new bank branch. Over $50,000. Michael studied the route. "They'll hit it here," he said, indicating a narrow pass. "Perfect ambush point." "Blackwood has 12 men," Wilson noted. "We're just 2. 3, Kate corrected firmly. "James was my husband. I want justice." "And who watches Jenny while you're getting shot at?" Michael asked. Kate's jaw set stubbornly. "I was an army nurse during the war. I've seen worse than whatever's coming." A commotion from the saloon interrupted them. Michael's hand dropped to his Colt as the door burst open. But it was only the piano player, breathless and wide-eyed. "Sheriff's rounded up a posse," he gasped. "Says they're looking for the man who killed Deputy Rivers up by Elk Creek. They're checking every building in town." Michael's eyes met Wilson's. "Seems our timeline just shortened." Wilson nodded grimly. "I know a place. Old Trapper's cabin up in the hills. Parker won't find us there." As they gathered what they needed, Jenny suddenly clutched at Michael's coat, her small face urgent as her hands moved in quick signs. "She says there's another way," Kate translated, watching her daughter's hands. "A tunnel from the storeroom to the livery stable. The Chinese railroad workers dug it during the riots last year." Michael nodded. "Lead the way, deputy." Jenny's smile was like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. The cabin Wilson led them to was primitive, but defensible, with clear sight lines in all directions. As dusk approached, they sat around a small fire, the map between them, planning their next move. "Parker will be watching the roads," Wilson said, "and Blackwood's men know these mountains." Michael cleaned his Winchester with practiced efficiency. "Then we change the game. Instead of going to them, we bring them to us." "How?" Kate asked. Bait. Michael reassembled the rifle with quick, economical movements. Something Cole wants badly enough to come out of hiding. Kate's eyes narrowed. The payroll. Michael nodded. Wilson and I intercept the Wells Fargo wagon before Blackwood's men. We redirect it here, set a trap. When Cole comes for the money, we end this, Wilson finished. Kate studied them both. You're not telling me everything. This isn't just about James, is it? Michael was silent for a long moment, his hands still on the reassembled rifle. Finally, he spoke, his voice flat with controlled rage. 3 years ago, I was sheriff in a mining town called Prosperity. Had a wife, Sarah, a son, Thomas, 10 years old. His knuckles whitened on the rifle. Cole Blackwood and his gang hit our bank during a gold shipment. When the teller was slow with the safe, they started shooting. Sarah and Thomas were there, depositing Thomas's birthday money. The fire crackled in the silence that followed. I tracked them for 2 weeks, caught up with them near the Idaho border. There was a fight. Michael's face was expressionless, but his eyes burned. I killed 3 of Blackwood's men, but took a bullet. When I woke up, the doctor told me I'd been unconscious for days. Cole was long gone, and my badge had been taken. A trophy. So this is vengeance, Kate said quietly. Justice, Michael corrected. The kind the law can't or won't provide. Jenny, who had been sitting quietly by her mother, suddenly stood and walked to Michael. She touched his hand, then signed something. She says she understands. Kate translated, her voice thick. She says sometimes bad men need to be stopped before they hurt more families. Michael looked at the small, fierce face before him and saw reflected there his own son's determination. Something cracked in his chest. Not healing, not yet, but the possibility of it someday. Then we'd better get ready, he said. Tomorrow we rewrite the ending to Cole Blackwood's story. Dawn broke gray and misty over the mountains. Wilson, who had spent the night scouting, returned with news. The payroll wagon left Virginia City at first light. It'll reach Devil's Pass by noon. Michael nodded, checking his weapons one final time. To Kate, he said, Stay here with Jenny. If we're not back by sundown, we will be, Wilson interrupted firmly. They rode out as the mist began to lift, taking a game trail known only to Wilson that would lead them to a position overlooking Devil's Pass. Neither man spoke much. They'd both fought enough battles to know that words meant little before the shooting started. The ambush went exactly as Michael had planned. They intercepted the Wells Fargo wagon at a bend in the trail, Michael's badge, recovered from the dead deputy, convincing the guards they were legitimate. With the wagon secured and hidden near the cabin, they laid their trap and waited. Cole Blackwood arrived with the setting sun, leading 8 riders. They approached the cabin cautiously, having found the signs Michael had deliberately left for them to follow. Remember, Michael said softly to Wilson, positioned behind a fallen log 30 yards from the cabin. Cole is mine. Wilson nodded, lifting his rifle. The rest are mine. And Michael? He paused. Make it count. The first shot from Michael's Winchester dropped one of Blackwood's scouts from his saddle. The second shattered the lantern another outlaw was holding, spraying him with burning oil. Chaos erupted as the bandits realized they'd ridden into a trap. Wilson's rifle barked steadily, methodically. 3 more of Blackwood's men fell. The others scattered for cover, returning fire wildly into the gathering darkness. Michael circled through the trees, moving closer to where Cole had taken position behind a boulder. This was the moment he lived for since finding Sarah and Thomas lying in pools of their own blood. Nothing else mattered. A gunshot from the cabin shattered his focus. Kate's scream followed. She'd been inside the cabin as planned, but something had gone wrong. Another shot and then silence. Michael hesitated, torn between his vendetta and the woman who had trusted him with her safety. Cole Blackwood was 30 yards away, pinned down but alive. Justice for Sarah and Thomas was within his grasp. Another scream, Jenny's. Not a sound but a feeling that pierced the dusk. Michael cursed and changed direction, sprinting toward the cabin. He burst through the door to find Sheriff Parker holding Kate at gunpoint, his left arm bleeding from a graze wound. Jenny cowered in the corner, eyes wide with terror. "Drop the gun, Colt," Parker ordered, "or the woman dies next." Michael's Colt didn't waver. "How long have you been Cole's man, Parker?" "Long enough to know which side the money's on." Parker's eyes were desperate. "He has my son, has had him for 2 years. I do what he asks, or Ethan Jr. dies." Understanding dawned. "So that's the hold he has on you. You think this is about money?" Parker's laugh was bitter. "I'd burn every dollar if it would bring my boy home." Outside, gunfire continued as Wilson held off the remaining bandits. Time was running out. "Cole will never let your son go," Michael said evenly. "Men like him don't honor deals. They use people until they're no longer useful." Doubt flickered in Parker's eyes. "Help us end this," Michael continued. "For your son, for Kate's husband, for my family." A moment stretched between them, taut as a drawn bowstring. Then Parker's gun shifted toward the window. "Cole's behind the big pine, 50 yards south." Michael nodded once, an understanding passing between two fathers who'd lost everything. "Get them to safety," he said, and was gone. Cole Blackwood was exactly where Parker had said, reloading his revolver as his remaining men provided covering fire. He didn't see Michael approach from his blind side, moving silent as a mountain lion. "Cole," Michael said. Blackwood whirled, gun rising. Michael's first shot struck his hand, sending the revolver spinning away. His second hit Cole's leg, dropping him to his knees. "Who the hell are you?" Cole gasped, clutching his bleeding hand. Michael stepped closer, letting Cole see his face in the fading light. "Michael Colt, Sheriff of Prosperity." Recognition dawned in Cole's eyes, followed by fear. "Colt, but you're dead. My men took my badge, not my life." Michael's voice was ice. "Not like you took my family's." "It was business," Cole said desperately. "Nothing personal. I've got money. So did my son. $10 in birthday money he was depositing when you shot him." Michael's Colt was unwavering. "Any last words?" Cole's hand moved like lightning, drawing a hideaway derringer from his boot. Michael fired twice, center mass. Cole fell backward, eyes wide with surprise, the small gun unfired in his hand. Michael knelt beside the dying man, placing his recovered badge on Cole's chest. "That's for my boy," he said quietly, "and my wife, and for every other life you've ruined." Cole's eyes fixed on something beyond Michael, beyond the mountains, beyond this world. Then he was gone. 1 month later, Michael stood on the porch of the Broken Spoke, watching the morning stage arrive. Sheriff Parker, reinstated after the truth about his son had come out, supervised as the last of Blackwood's captured men were loaded for transport to the territorial prison. Parker's son, recovered from Cole's hideout after the shootout, sat on the boardwalk nearby, still thin and haunted-eyed but healing. The door opened behind Michael. Kate stepped out, wiping her hands on her apron. "The stage is here," Michael said unnecessarily. Kate nodded. "Wilson said to tell you goodbye. He's taken a job as scout for the cavalry at Fort Kearney." "Good man," Michael commented. "One of the best I've known." They stood in comfortable silence, watching the town go about its morning business. "What will you do now?" Kate asked finally. "With Cole gone?" Michael considered the question. For 3 years, vengeance had been his only purpose. Now, in its absence, he felt strangely hollow. "I've been offered my old job back," he said, "Sheriff of Prosperity. Will you take it?" Before he could answer, Jenny appeared in the doorway. She ran to Michael and took his hand, tugging him toward the street where Parker was finishing up with the prisoners. "What is it, deputy?" Michael asked, the nickname having stuck. Jenny's hands moved rapidly in sign language. "She says there's a man asking for you," Kate translated, following them. "A banker from Virginia City. Something about a reward for capturing Cole Blackwood." Michael shook his head. "I didn't do it for money." Jenny signed again, insistent. "She says you could use it to stay," Kate said softly. "Redemption needs a good man with a gun." Michael looked at the town spread before him, rough-edged but growing, full of people trying to build something lasting in a harsh land. Not so different from what he'd once had in prosperity, what he'd failed to protect. Jenny tugged his hand again, her face earnest. She signed once more. "She says everyone deserves a second chance," Kate translated, "even sheriffs." Michael felt something shift inside him. Not healing, not completely, but the beginning of it. A second chance. A new day. "Tell the banker I'll speak with him," he said finally, "after I teach this young deputy how to shoot straight." Jenny's smile was like the sunrise breaking over the mountains, the promise of a new day in a place aptly named Redemption. "Some men say vengeance doesn't bring peace," Michael thought as they walked toward the sheriff's office. "They're wrong, but the peace doesn't come from the killing. It comes from what you build afterward, from the second chance you never thought you'd get." And in Montana in 1876, second chances were as rare and valuable as gold.